Okay, so what I'm going to do then is just start off by giving you an overview of what we're going to do, and what I'll do is just start Buildsoft up here and into the Job Manager screen. Just before we begin, this webinar is one of a number we're running over the next 4 to 6 weeks. This one is entitled Tender Analysis 1, and the next scheduled webinar is on the 15th of June, and it's on-screen takeoff, which is our 2D CAD takeoff system, which would allow you to be able to call up drawings on screen, whether they be CAD files, PDFs, and other image formats, JPEG, bitmaps, and so forth, do take off on screen and return the results into Buildsoft. So that's on the 15th of June. Followed then by, on the 29th of June, part 2 of this webinar, which is Tender Analysis 2, which will look at the whole tender analysis in more detail, specifically using the BETS module and more close attention to detail on the resourcing of rates and the updating of individual component parts of rates. So that is on the 29th of June, and it's called Tender Analysis 2. The final one in this set of 4 is on the 13th of July, and it's entitled Top Tips. Of course, an agenda and an invitation will be sent out to all users, but that webinar is going to deal with many of the top support issues that come in over the phones and email. Specifically, ones we've identified would be converting jobs from Buildsoft into Excel and vice versa, amongst others, things like applying markdowns to rates and printing the bill with those rates marked down, and about another 8 topics that would come, as I say, over the phones quite regular. So that is on the 13th of July, and we have, as with this webinar, we've had an unprecedented demand, and we've had to run 3 individual sessions. We ran one yesterday morning at 8:30, another at 10:15, and this one this morning. So it may, depending on if the level of interest is as great as this, we may end up having to run a number of those. So if the 15th doesn't suit you, maybe the 16th might do for the on-screen takeoff and so forth. But the invitations for that will probably go out middle of next week in time for the following week. So as I say, the next one is the 15th, followed by the 29th, and followed by the 13th of July. And you'll all get an invite to those should they be of interest to you. Okay, so to zone in on this particular webinar, we're entitling it Tender Analysis 1, and the first section we're going to look at is coding and analysis, and what the functions in Buildsoft are for coding and analysis. So what I'll do is just quickly make sure that everybody is logged on, which they appear to be. Just again to reiterate, I see a number of users there don't have the use mic and speakers option ticked. If you can tick that, that'd be great, because I think you'd probably be able to hear me better. It's in the middle of your GoToMeeting control panel. There is an audio mode there. There are 2 options: use telephone, and the second option is use mic and speakers. So if you can click that option, it should be able to let you hear me much clearer. Okay, so moving into coding and analysis, what I'll do is I will just open up a job here, which I've entitled BOQ to be coded, and once I do that, it'll bring me into the job summary of my job. Now what I've done here is I have taken a bill of quantities and stripped out 3 elements. I didn't want to deal with a massive bill in terms of this webinar. It would just take far too long to resource it and so forth. So I stripped out three elements: demolitions and alterations, internal walls partitions, and internal walls completions. And what I'd first like to look at is what are code files used for. Code files allow you to be able to resource a bill or a tender document into specific sections or groupings of your own making. They have a number of uses, one of which we're having a look at this morning, which is resourcing this bill of quantities into trade packages for pricing by subcontractors. However, the resourcing codes can be used in different ways. For instance, one which we look at in the Tender Analysis 2 webinar on the 29th is the resourcing of rates themselves and allowing the user to be able to apply increases or decreases to component parts of rates. So that particular section, resourcing rates and the BETS module, is going to be covered in the webinar on the 29th. So what we're looking at this morning is resourcing a bill of quantities or another tender into specific trade packages using the resourcing codes or rate codes. So where are they accessed and how are they created? Well, what I'll do is I'll just show you on the Job Manager screen. Up the top left-hand corner, you'll see the File drop-down menu. If you click on the File drop-down menu, you'll see down the bottom View OR codes and View OR2 codes. What are the differences between OR codes and OR2 codes? Well, in essence, really, there isn't much difference. They do pretty much the same thing. However, the OR code is a maximum of a 3-character code, and the OR2 code is a maximum of 6 characters. So the uses for those really would be where the OR code may be used to resource a job into trade packages for subcontract pricing, and the OR2 codes might be used for resourcing individual component parts of rates for maybe an analysis in an accounting system of a bill. That would be commonly what they're used for. But in essence, their use is pretty much similar in that what it allows you to be able to do is resource up a bill or a tender document into an alternative format for analysis, maybe a tender meeting or for subcontract comparison or whatever it might be. So what I'll do is I will just open up a code file, and simply to do that I click on the File menu and select the option View OR2 Code File. You'll notice beside the option there's also a shortcut key that allows you to be able to activate this using the function keys on your keyboard without having to use the menus. That's common throughout the system. If there is a shortcut key, when you look at the drop-down menu, it'll show it to you on the right-hand side. So I'm going to click on this View OR2 Code File, and up will pop the last used OR2 code file, in that you can have multiple different code files to do different types of work. So in this code file, you'll see what I've done is I have set up a code called Build, and it is describing builder's work. I've set up a code called Plast, and that is describing plastering, woodwork supply, woodwork fixing, painting, steelwork, piling, and so forth. To add an additional code, you simply would type in the code field the code you want to use, and then a description of what that code would be describing. So to establish a code file, you simply need to identify a code and describe what that code file means. So once you've built up your code file, that is available to you not only in the job that you're currently in, but also in every job in the system in every project. So so program-wide, all of these codes that you establish are available for use in any job, even though they are created only specifically when you open up a particular job on the job manager screen. But they are available, as I say, in every job. So to create a new code file, I'll just run through the process of doing that, being that I already had that code file created. So I'm just going to close this window a minute, and again, just repeat File, View or to Code File, and again, it's always going to bring up the last one that you used. So what I'll do is I will click on the Open button down the right-hand side here, and once I do that, it will allow me enter in a name. So if I call it, say, test code file, and click Open, it will give me a blank code file. So this is how you would go about establishing your code file. You'll go to the Open button, type in a name, and click Open, and that will then give you a specific code file to your own, your own making or your own name. And then you continue just filling in the code file and so forth and so forth. To open up one you may have created previously, as in the one I had opened previously for the webinar, you simply click on the Open button, highlight the code file that you created previously, and again click the Open button, and it will display the code file of your selection. So to recap just quickly on that, to create a resource or rate code file, you open up any job as far as the job summary screen. Once you're on the job summary screen, you go to the File drop-down menu and select or2 code file. Once you select the or2 code file, what will then be displayed to you is the last used code file. To create one of your own, you click on the Open button, and then type in a name of your code file, and then click on the Open button, which will allow you create yourself a specific code file to your own need. So again, I'm going to open my webinar code file so that I have that active. Okay, so once you have it created, now of course they don't have to be done in their entirety from day one. Of course, you can at any point in time go and amend that code file, adding in additional codes as they are required. Once you have your code file established, what you then need to do is you then need to code up sections of your bill of quantities or tender document into those specific groupings. To do that, you open up your first element, and in this case I'm going to open up demolitions and alterations. So I highlight my element and I click the View Next Level button. That will then bring me down to the trade breakup level, or the bill level as it's commonly known. Now what you would normally see